Hello and welcome to this episode of Ritter's Rant. Uh, Today's word of the day is outrage. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now from members of Congress, members of the United States Senate, and other, Republicans who have just woken up to the fact that the Biden administration weaponized the Department of Justice, weaponized the FBI, and Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, was targeting the communications of 8 elected members of Congress, 7 senators and 1 representative. Oh my God. You mean the FBI was listening to people's conversations because they held political positions that differed from the Biden administration? I mean, this is an outrage, an absolute outrage. And in all seriousness, it is. But it's curious how these elected officials are only outraged when the FBI targets them. Imagine if the FBI did this to other Americans. Where's the outrage? Because we know they have. This isn't the first time the FBI has been used as a political weapon, a politicized weapon. Democrats and Republicans alike had been using the FBI to suppress American citizens for decades, since the time the FBI was created. I mean, the FBI is nothing more than a politicized Gestapo welded by, American presidents to intimidate, suppress, bring down people who oppose. And yes, the FBI has legitimate law enforcement, missions. And yes, the FBI has done great service to the country by bringing down criminals and terrorists and spies. But there's a disturbing part of the FBI that doesn't do any of that. Their job is to basically spy on the American people and to assault legally, physically, financially any American who dares raise their hand and say, I don't agree. How do I know this? Well, gosh, sort of happened to me. Let's just think about, what the FBI did to members of Congress. We're talking about, tolling communications. That means that they gained access to the data related to, cell phone activity, communications activity that allowed, patterns of communication, who people were talking to. It was all part of this overall investigation, Arctic Frost, that was designed to create a case of sedition, literal treason against not only Donald Trump, but any of his political supporters, including those in Congress. This was the goal. This was the objective of Jack Smith. And frankly speaking, had Kamala Harris won the election in 2024, you would probably see not only Donald Trump, but a whole bunch of senators, congressmen, and everyday Americans being rounded up and put in jail, is what the Democrats wanted to do. They spoke openly of the necessity of concentration camps to bring people who were not in agreement with their political philosophy. This is very dangerous, very un-American. And Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, is right to call it out. But to pretend that this wasn't happening to day-to-day Americans. When the FBI came to my house, they came with a search warrant. The search warrant was signed off by a federal magistrate judge. In order to sign that off, the FBI had to provide an affidavit of probable cause. That meant that they had to accuse me of committing a crime worthy of a search warrant, because without a search warrant, they literally are violating my Fourth Amendment. But they got the judge to sign off on it. Now, that affidavit of probable cause has remained classified. They won't release it. Why? It's just made up stuff, straight up manufactured. They had no probable cause to come into my house. Their job was to intimidate me. They seized my electronics. There was an affidavit that said they're seizing electronics because they expect to find the following. But that's classified too, because they just made it up. They didn't know what they were looking for. They just were coming in to seize electronics to intimidate me, maybe go on a fishing expedition. But it's not just a search warrant that did it. 2 days after they executed the search warrant, the Northern District of New York, a part of the Department of Justice, opened up a grand jury investigation on me to begin the process of prosecuting me, to criminally charge me with what? They don't know. They were fishing. They were looking. They called in my tax advisor, brought in all my tax records. They wanted to know where I got my money. That's one of the things they were interested in, is who was paying me, how I was being paid, what was the source of income. It was all publicly available. My life is an open book. My tax records are filed every year. The data is accurate. They knew this, but the goal was to intimidate me, maybe to stumble upon something that they weren't aware of. But that's not justification to go on a fishing expedition. When they questioned me, the FBI revealed the fact that they had been monitoring my communications for 2 years. This means they had to go to a judge and get permission to wiretap me, to take my emails, to listen to my phone conversations. Now, normally, you have to have probable cause, meaning we believe he's committing X, Y, and Z crimes. You're not allowed to do it for a fishing expedition. And then normally it's only allowed to happen for 30 days, but the emails they had were over the course of 2 years. So every 30 days, they would have to go to a judge and explain why they needed to extend this, and they were able to get a judge to buy off on it for 2 years. That means they were lying to the judge. That means they were saying things about me that simply weren't true. But this is what they do. They do it to me. They did it to the senators, and they can do it to any American, anytime, and nothing's changed. As long as we have an FBI in place that has the ability to lie to judges and not be held accountable. I'm just being straight up honest, ladies and gentlemen. Every FBI agent who issued a sworn affidavit in support of my search warrant, in support of the wiretapping, in support of anything, in support of opening a grand jury, should be fired, should be held criminally liable, as should every Department of Justice attorney, because they are violating the law. All this angst, all this anxiety, all this anger that's being demonstrated today, this outrage against the FBI for what they did against 7 senators and 1 member of Congress. That outrage, that angst, that anxiety, that anger should be manifested against any abuse of power by the FBI against any American citizen. They didn't just come after me. This wasn't a one-of. This is a campaign run by the FBI, a operation designed to create the impression, to manufacture the impression of Russian interference in the 2024 election. They accused me of interfering in the election. The only interference that I was doing in the election was not playing the game that Joe Biden wanted me to play, was exercising my right as an American citizen to say, I don't agree, I support another policy. And maybe having the credibility to say that these policies of the Biden administration stink and people were listening. The Biden administration was like a little nervous. So they had to shut me down. They came into my house, but they also raided the home of Dimitri Simes. This is a man who used to be an advisor to President Trump, a noted Russian-American journalist who at the time of the seizure was actually living in Moscow because he was working for a Russian media outlet. They raided his home, accusing him of, violating Foreign Agent Registration Act, etc., and a bunch of other charges. They raided the home of a RT producer who will remain unnamed only because she is asked to remain unnamed. They entered her home. They seized her electronics. They strip searched her. She claims that the strip search took on terms of sexual assault. It was that kind of strip search. They were looking for something. They spent a lot of time talking to her about me because on occasion, in her duties as an RT editor, she would call me up and say, hey, we have a program. Can you do this interview? Can you do that interview? And geez, apparently that was a crime. They talked to her about, Margarita Simeon, the head of RT. They talked to her as if RT was some sort of spy organization. They actually released in relation to her raid the affidavit of probable cause, and we now know what they were looking for here: evidence of covert communications, meaning they were going through her computers, through her cell phones, looking for the mechanisms to communicate covertly to people like me. So they, I guess, believed that there would be some sort of covert communications mechanism on my electronics. They've been sadly disappointed. It doesn't exist. It exists with this RT producer as well. They manufactured the case. They were on a fishing expedition. Their goal wasn't to find actual connectivity between RT and an American citizen colluding against the election. They knew that wasn't happening. Their goal was to paint RT with a brush, to demonize RT in the minds of the American people, to make the American people believe that RT was a news organization capable of carrying out, ongoing election interference, and then to taint any American that might have had a relationship with RT with the same brush. Yeah, I had a relationship with RT. On occasion, I would publish articles on RT's English language website. On other occasions, I would make video content that I would publish on my website, and RT paid me for this. I wasn't a full-time employee, and I certainly didn't take direction from RT. But like any independent journalist, I have my materials published in a variety of outlets. I published in The American Conservative. Did the FBI raid the offices of The American Conservative? I don't think so. I published with Truthdig. Did the FBI raid Truthdig? Nope, they didn't. I've been published in Harper's Magazine. Did they raid Harper's Magazine? Nope. I've been published elsewhere. They haven't raided a consortium news. No. But RT, no, you see, that's Russia. And therefore, they have to take that down. They have to paint it with a brush. Outrage. The outrage is that the FBI and the Department of Justice has been able to carry out this frontal assault on free speech and a free press. And not a single one of these senators and congressmen who are, outraged by what the FBI did to them has spoken out and said, no, you can't do that. A free press means that the press gets to operate the way they see fit. RT is a legitimate media outlet. You may not agree with what they say. Hell, who agrees with what the New York Times says any day nowadays, or the Washington Post? But we don't see the FBI shutting them down because they are literally, state-sponsored media. No, they went after RT for political purposes. There is no free speech in America today as long as RT and other Russia state media or Russia independent media are suppressed by sanctions and by other laws. Outrage. Well, guess what? I've been invited to attend the 20th anniversary gala for RT in Moscow. Logic would dictate I shouldn't go because politics being what it is, gosh, it could send the wrong signal. But, if I didn't go, the implication would be that it's okay to suppress RT. It's okay to paint RT with this broad brush. It's okay to portray RT as anything other than a legitimate media outlet. No, I'm going for the very reason that RT is a legitimate media outlet. And it's an honor and privilege to be invited to the 20th anniversary. And I will attend so gladly, willingly, and I will celebrate RT as a media outlet. And in doing so, I will hopefully engender a process of getting rid of the stigma that has been placed on RT and other Russian media outlets. If you want to defeat Russophobia in America today, and Russophobia is a huge problem, you have to stop the process of delegitimizing everything Russia. You don't have to agree with RT. You don't have to even read RT. Nobody makes you. But what you can't do is suppress RT. You can't suppress any thought, because the second you suppress it, what you're saying is you don't have the strength of your convictions to be better than they are. If you disagree with RT, the solution isn't suppression. The solution is to criticize, to say, I disagree. This is what I believe. This is what I believe they're doing wrong. And if you are right in your convictions, if you're able to articulate it plainly, then people will likewise be dismissive of RT. The best way to deplatform RT is to demonstrate to people knowingly and willingly that RT is insufficient to the task. But that's not what happened. You see, RT is actually very good at its job. RT, because it is a legitimate media outlet, because they do have legitimate journalists, because they aren't tainted by pressure from the American government. RT was very popular amongst an American audience, very popular amongst an international audience. And that's what makes RT dangerous. They just are better expressing ideas than their counterparts. You want to improve American journalism? Bring RT back to the United States as a competitor. Make Americans see the standard that's set and strive to do better. Anyways, that's my rant. The outrage over the interference of the FBI, the outrage over ongoing suppression of free speech and a free press. When will this outrage turn into action? I'm waiting.